We like to think the world runs on diplomacy and international law. The reality is much darker. The global order operates on jungle law, dictated entirely by leverage. This diagram illustrates a stark paradox. The United States has around 340 million people, a tiny fraction of the global population, yet it dictates the economic and political fate of billions. Military might provides the visible edge of this power, but the foundation is a far more complex architecture. It is an invisible, interconnected web that touches every sovereign nation on Earth. This dominance relies on three distinct pillars that define the limits of modern sovereignty. The first pillar is the geography and talent trap. America is physically isolated by two oceans, protecting it from border conflicts. That stability allows it to import the top intellectual and entrepreneurial brains from around the world. While other nations exhaust their resources fighting over physical borders, the U.S. channels this imported talent into building absolute technological and financial monopolies. The second pillar was cemented right after World War II, tying global trade to the U.S. dollar. Fiat currency is government-issued money that isn't backed by a physical commodity like gold, giving the issuing government immense control over its value. Because of this structure, if a nation steps out of line, the U.S. doesn't need to drop a single bomb. They can simply block access to international monetary funds and destroy the local economy. Look at Venezuela. Their economy collapsed under severe hyperinflation, rendering their national currency nearly worthless in the hands of their own citizens. This economic trap is exactly why China and the BRICS nations, an intergovernmental organization comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are desperately trying to build an alternative trading currency. Economic power is the ultimate leash. It forces rival nations to either submit to U.S. policy or attempt the near impossible task of building an entirely new global financial system from scratch. When economic manipulation fails, the third pillar activates: the shadow war. The U.S. deploys covert action through its intelligence agencies. The regime change playbook is methodical. First, crash the economy to create domestic anger. Then, fund opposition leaders and use social media algorithms to control the narrative. The most effective tactics happen behind closed doors. Intelligence agencies deploy honey traps, using romantic or sexual relationships to compromise targets, or they simply buy off top military generals to execute bloodless coups. We saw claims of this exact playbook unfolding recently in Bangladesh, leading to the sudden ousting of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Modern superpowers rarely declare formal wars. They simply buy the enemy's generals and rewrite the hostile government from the inside out. But this sprawling system has a major internal complication. Intense lobbying and systemic blackmail allow foreign interests to manipulate American foreign policy. High-level intelligence gathering and elite blackmail rings, like those associated with the Epstein Files, gather compromising material to force the compliance of top politicians. This pressure is amplified by campaign financing. When foreign interests become the top donors in U.S. elections, they often secure the leverage needed to dictate American involvement in specific regional conflicts. While the U.S. deals with this internal corruption, China acts as the silent challenger. They use absolute secrecy to build up a massive industrial base without triggering a direct American response. China quietly advances its military technology, waiting for the U.S. to become hopelessly distracted in the Middle East so it can seize Taiwan. The American empire bleeds control from the inside through elite blackmail, while its greatest rival patiently sets up a geopolitical checkmate. If the world is a chessboard of proxies and targets, where does a rising power like India fit into this dangerous matrix? This animated diagram illustrates India's controversial but necessary strategy of strategic silence. Strategic silence is a foreign policy approach where a nation maintains strict neutrality and refuses to formally ally with any single global bloc. India must walk this tightrope for its own survival. While the U.S. offers high-tech cooperation, its history of leveraging sanctions and dictating internal policy means that any alliance comes with a significant risk to national independence. In a world governed by leverage, relying on diplomatic goodwill is a guaranteed death sentence. True sovereignty in the 21st century requires three things: ruthless internal economic growth, absolute technological independence, and the willingness to play the geopolitical game just as coldly as the superpowers do.